2-bedroom, 1-bathroom bungalow was too small after 10 years.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a nice area too.
Yeah.
And your commute's not too bad, right?
Oh no, we were really strategic about where our commute was because I hate commuting. I hate driving. Imagine that. I work for a transit company. I don't like to drive. um, so I ride to work often, but
Uh-huh.
we wanted to make sure neither of us ever had more than a 20-minute commute. So quick freeway access. And then we wanted to be close to the airport because he travels constantly on last minute notice. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's great. Well, hey, thank you to everybody who is joining us right now. We're just going to give a couple of minutes for some people to join. Alicia and I are just catching up on Utah trivia and where we live and all the commonalities that we have. So thanks for everybody for joining. So we'll just get another minute or two before we get started. All right, so if for anybody who's joining us, if you have questions, then we would encourage all of you to use the chat feature. You can just chat any messages you have in there. That will be something that we'll take a look at. So as we kind of go through today's presentation, we'll address all of the questions that you have at the very end. And we're super excited for you to join in. And so to respect your time, we'll go ahead and we'll actually get started today. So thanks for joining us for Motivosity and for 5 tips to create a culture of caring. I'm going to kind of kick this off a little bit today and tell you a little bit about the psychology that comes into creating a culture of caring. And then we're so fortunate to have Alicia Garrett join us today from Utah Transit Authority, who's going to talk about what they have actually been able to do to create these 5 tips that have really helped create that culture of caring. I'll kick it over to Alicia in just a little bit. Before I do, though, I'd love to just tell you a little bit about myself. And when I talk about myself, I like to talk most about my kids. So these are my 3 adorable boys. I have a 7-year-old Graham, a 4-year-old Oliver, and a 1-year-old Milo. And my wife and I love being parents. I actually met my wife in junior high, so we were 14 when we met each other, dated on and off throughout high school, and I think that more than anything, I kind of identify as a husband and a father. They're my priorities. If anything pops up my kids need me for, like, I'm there. And as my wife and I talk about how we can help them achieve their full potential, we have discussed the principles of positive parenting. So if you're familiar with positive parenting, awesome. And if you're not, let me give you a little bit of an overview. Basically, what positive parenting says is that 95% of all the appropriate things our kids do go completely unrecognized. We're a lot more common and frequent at acknowledging the negative things that they actually do. So when Graham hits his brother Ollie, we're very quick to say, Graham, stop hitting your brother. Like, what in the world are you thinking? And when we do that, it's actually reinforcing that negative behavior. He knows every time he hits Ollie that he's going to get mom and dad's attention. Another common one that I see in parenting is if you don't eat your dinner, you're not going to be able to get dessert. And we keep reinforcing that over and over while we're having dinner. And that's a negative reinforcement. It's acknowledging that they're not eating. And the longer they don't eat or don't eat the Brussels sprouts, then they know they continue to get that reinforcement from mom and dad and the attention. And so what positive parenting says is that we should have 8 positive interactions to every 1 negative interaction that we have. So the way that actually changes this perception is, let's say that Ollie doesn't eat his dinner. He's a kid. Kids will eat. They won't starve themselves. And because of that, I know eventually he's going to. But he may not eat dinner tonight. And if he doesn't eat dinner, instead of acknowledging that he's not, when he puts his dishes, maybe full of food, in the sink, that's when I can say, Ollie, thank you so much for putting your dishes away. That's a positive reinforcement. And it takes a mental shift for us to kind of get in this mind frame of looking for the good instead of the bad. But we're supposed to have this 8-to-1 ratio, 8 positive reinforcements to every 1 negative one we have. So that's frequent and regular. The question that I'll kind of pose, this rhetorical question, is, should it be frequent and regular, or should it be a grand gesture that happens periodically? Well, I worked at a company where we came up with this idea, and we were thrilled with the idea. We had a budget for our culture and caring about people, and it was $10,000. So we had a $10,000 budget, and we said, what should we do with these funds? And so we decided to come up with an activity. Every Friday for an hour and a half, we do something fun and different. We did Lego Pinewood Derbies. We'd go to a bounce house and do the Ninja Warrior course, or we would knit, or we would just do different things. And if you participated in the culture, you'd get a ping pong ball that would go into this big drum. And once a year at our annual offsite, we'd roll that big thing and we'd pull out a ping pong ball. And whoever's name we drew out, we literally had a briefcase with $10,000 in cash. Totally cool, right? It actually had like 3 reams of paper underneath it, because $10,000 in cash is not as much as you would think in a briefcase. So we did that. And the hope and intent was that it would change the life of the person who received it. And so the first year we did, we actually drew out the name of a vice president of sales. Oh, I can just kind of tell it just hurts a little bit, right? VP of sales gets it. It hurts a little bit just because it wasn't life-changing, but it still was awesome. You can still see the excitement and the enthusiasm people had. Well, the second year that we did it, we drew out somebody who was a line worker, and the money they had was a game changer. It actually helped them get a down payment to purchase a house that they wouldn't have been able to get otherwise. The third year that this actually happened, it went back to the VP of sales again. And what this did is it kind of killed the culture. People started saying it's a game, it's rigged. They started looking at how it wasn't fair, and people stopped participating in those Friday activities. And so the culture failed because it was one big grand gesture instead of being frequent and regular. Well, how this kind of translates to our role as being in business, and even to the world of positive parenting, is that we have to change the environment when it comes to our culture. I love this quote. Children don't have the ability after a rough day to say, can we talk? I do that with my wife, but I can't do that with my kids because they just don't know how to do it. So if they've had a rough day at school and I get home and walk in from the office, then what they normally say is, Dad, will you play with me? It's their simple way of saying, can you help me change the environment I'm part of? It's been a stressful day. I did poor on my spelling test. I got home and I can't play with a friend because I got homework, but will you just spend some time outside with me playing in the snow or pushing me on the swings, and will you just help me get in a different mindset? And I love this idea of changing the mindset of people and changing that environment. And that's what we have to do with our workplace culture as well, is we have to change the environment. Now, this matters to us because when we look at culture and we actually look at the origin of where it comes from, it origins from the Latin word cultus, and cultus translates into the word care. So when we talk about culture, we're actually talking about creating a culture of caring about people. And back in 2015, Deloitte did some research, and they said that cultural issues exploded on the scene, rising to become the #1 issue companies were facing around the world. Here we are nearly 5 years later, and it's just a bigger topic that we're discussing even more frequently. And so we need to understand how to change the environment and how we can create a culture of caring while people are really validated for who they are. So I've done a lot of research over the time and tried to find out top intrinsic motivators. For most people, the research shows that family is the number one. And typically the second one for most people is religion or personal belief. Regardless of what you believe in or don't believe in for a deity, it's a top driver of motivation. Usually we see after family and faith things like empowerment, money or compensation, innovation, and some of these other things. But usually family and faith are in the top two. So personally, I'm a Christian, and I love the story of Jesus and the rich young man. Rich young man goes to Jesus and says, hey, what do I have to do to get eternal life? And Jesus says, follow the commandments. Pretty simple answer. Like, I translate this to the world of business. Somebody comes into my office and says, Jared, what do I have to do to accomplish this task? It's very easy to say, well, here's the answer. Go ahead and go do it. And that's kind of what Jesus does. Follow the commandments. And the rich young man says, like, oh, yeah, check. I've done that. What's next? And then what it says in the scripture is Jesus, beholding him, loved him. And after he loved him, he asked more of him. So the question is, what would it be like if you were to be, one, beheld by your deity? And if you don't have a deity, what would it be like to be beheld by a leader or someone that you really look up to? I think that they would see the good, the bad, the ugly. They'd see what you have done in the past, what you're doing now, and what you could accomplish one day. And it really changes the mindset we look at people, and we look through a different lens. So this is my baby Milo. We took Milo and the kids to Disneyland recently, and when we were in Disneyland, it was a different time zone, and it threw Milo's schedule off, right? He wasn't quite himself. He had a hard time, eating, had a hard time sleeping, had a hard time going to the bathroom, and there's an argument that could be made that Milo made our trip not as good as it could be. But if I look at the long-term view that I have of Milo, I think that Milo's going to be potty trained. I think that he's going to eventually make it to high school. And when he's in high school, he's going to be able to self-regulate his food and the way that he sleeps. I think that Milo one day is going to become a VP or a C-suite member someplace. I think he's going to become a grandfather. And when we start to look people at through this lens of what could they become and not the issue that they are today, the world really changes for them and for us. I once had the opportunity to work with an employee who had received this label of an attendance nightmare. He would show up late all the time, and we couldn't get him there at all. He was on a performance improvement plan or PIP, and while he was on that, we were just like, what is the deal? How come he can't get here? And we labeled him. We looked at the issue that was happening right then. And we took a break and said, we need to look through a different lens at this person and see what's really going on. And so as we met with him, we changed the course of the conversation to find out, what's your story? What's actually going on? And as we did that, we learned that he's the youngest of 7 kids. When he was around time he was born, his father was in a severe car accident and had to be severely medicated pretty much his entire life. And so he really never had a father that was present to be there with him. And the one thing he wanted most in life was his father's approval. Because he couldn't get it there, he projected that other places, in church, looking at leaders there, at work, supervisors and managers. Anyone that was an authority figure, he craved that love, attention, validation, but he always felt like he could never deliver. So when he heard over and over on this performance improvement plan, you're not doing it, he's just like, yeah, I can't. I've never been able to, I can't. And so we changed the dialogue to start focusing on all of the good things that he was doing. We gave the positive reinforcement frequently and regularly. We showed an increase of love. And what happened is his attendance improved and his performance improved. And instead of being labeled an attendance nightmare, he became one of our top performers and somebody that we wanted to mentor other people. And it was all because we looked at them through a different lens and we were able to care about who he was. I love this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King. Love, even for enemies, is the key to the solution of the problems of our world. As we look at our cultures, as we look at our workplaces, and as we look at those around us at work and at home, love is really what we need to see more often around us, because it solves so many of those things, because we're able to behold people for who they are. Well, Gallup did some research and wanted to find out how are businesses doing at creating this culture of caring. The result said that 65% of people did not feel appreciated for the work that they did. I've been in executive meetings with some people, and a COO actually said, "Hey, giving appreciation once a week is just way too much." And somebody else on the team said, "You got to be kidding me! Like, I give you 40 to 60 hours a week, and you're saying there's not one thing that you can appreciate me for during that 40 to 60 hours?" They were hungry for that validation, but 65% of us are not receiving that regularly. We also know that the number one cited reason for turnover is a relationship with your manager. So it's this top-down approach, and really, feeling that validation that way. But Forbes did the research and found that 77% of people said the relationship with their colleagues or those at their level is critical to their workplace satisfaction. Not just an important factor, but critical to how happy you are at work every single day. And then Harvard did some research and found that those companies that have a strong emphasis or focus on creating a culture of caring over a 10-year time frame improve their net income 765%. So it also benefits our companies a lot, and we profit a lot when we can create this culture of caring. Now, in order to care about people, it does take a lot of emotional intelligence. And so I love this employee journey that all of us go through. We know that on average in the US right now, most people stay in a job for about 3 years. So all of us go through this every 3 years, and then we start the cycle all over. What this shows is this hiker is as a new hire, climbing real fast. It's also known as the honeymoon phase. We're able to just move as quick as possible. But we eventually get to a point where some kind of problem begins. So I've spent a lot of time in the tech space, and in kind of a popular perk is unlimited time off. So let's say, for example, that I'm hired and I didn't join just because there's unlimited PTO, but that's cool. The first time I try to go use unlimited time off and get some time off, my manager says, "Jared, we really need you here this day. We got a big project, and it'd be so helpful if you were here." On my side, I'm thinking, "Oh, I'm done with my stuff. You guys are gonna be totally fine, and I really want to go do this. And I've been here for 6 months, and I thought this was unlimited, right?" I have to go into this decision period where I decide, is this a big deal or not? It takes me a little bit off of my path. And as I get a little bit off of my path, I can decide to climb back up and get on my journey and continue moving forward. But something else might happen. Maybe at that point I have first one-on-one with a manager, and they pull something out of left field. Where is this coming from? And it gets me a little bit further from my path. Well, eventually all of us come to this place where I've heard it referred to as the crystallization of discontent, or where we're most unhappy. And at that time we have the decision: do I want to climb back up this mountain? It's going to take a lot of emotional energy, a lot of physical energy. I got to go through thorns and thistles and break a sweat and climb up this mountain. And if I do, I can get back on the path, or it might just be easier to leave. Now, the path that all of us are on, and the key to the employee journey, is our individual and personal why. It's our intrinsic motivators. And if you're going to find out what the intrinsic motivator or personal why is for everyone on your team, that takes a high level of emotional intelligence. It also takes us to think bigger. I love this book by Harvard Business Review called Time, Talent, and Energy. Basically what it says is, if you hire someone, you hire them for their talents. So I've done HR for the last 15 years. If you want to hire someone to do human resources, I can check that box. And what you give me in return is the gift of time, 40 to 60 hours a week, and say, summit this mountain and help us achieve these things. What this book reveals is that you're actually not climbing a mountain, it's an iceberg. And what lays below the surface is your individual energy. So while I've done HR, I've also done operations and accounting and marketing and sales, and I've done a lot of different things that could help in a lot of different areas. And when we start to look at our employees internally, let's just say that we have an accounting issue pop up. We're going to go to finance. Do we stop and say, you know what? This person over in IT has a ton of experience that might be able to help solve this. Normally we don't, and we ignore that energy. So we need to have the emotional intelligence to, one, identify what's your personal why, and then what are your skills and talents that lie outside of that job description that really could help us succeed. So I had this idea, and my idea was to test this on social media. Is there a way to really go beyond a resume and to see people for who they truly are? This is the picture that my family shared on Easter Sunday. So it took us a solid 10 or 15 minutes to get this one picture. But this is what we shared, the picture perfect example of what our family looked like that day. The reality is this is normally what my house looks like. I love getting these text messages from my wife because when I see them, I want to run home and pick up a crying child, and I want to tell my wife she's crushing it. But we don't normally share this online. And so I had the idea, what if we just heard somebody's story and we went beyond the resume and we cared about who they were as a person? So one story I'd like to share is my friend Mandy. Mandy was looking for a job in sales at the time, and most of her conversations were around hitting quotas and generating revenues, and how she's hit targets and been in presidents clubs and so forth. But we didn't talk about any of that in our meeting. I just asked about her. Got to know that she's a single mom. She's from Wyoming. Why did she move to Utah? Her kids love volleyball, and we just created this genuine friendship. I asked her a little bit later, what did our meeting do for you in this post online? And her response that I loved is she said, out of all the meetings that were happening at that time, this was the first one where I could tell that someone genuinely had an interest in me and that you cared about me. All of us as people want to be validated. We want to be seen and heard, and we want to be loved and be held. When we put other people in the spotlight, I believe that they're able to accomplish much more than you ever thought was possible. And when we create a culture of caring, it's about putting people in that spotlight, seeing them for who they are, and helping them take it to a new level. Someone that I'm really excited to introduce you to put in the spotlight for a little bit and to learn from, is my friend Alicia Garrett. Alicia is a phenomenal person. We've had the chance to work together a little bit on and off for over the last year. I was in an event recently with Alicia, and I love her contagious laugh so much. And I'm so excited to be able to turn some time over her to tell you a little bit about what she's done at UTA, but a bit about background about her. She had a really close family as she was growing up, where her parents were just these natural leaders that she was able to learn from. And she's always had a desire to continue to learn. And so she received an MBA and a bachelor's from Westminster University in International Business. And she was also able to travel the world with her husband, her cute husband, who you can see here. And they were able to go see cultures firsthand. Well, she joined UTA in 2012. And when she did, she helped pave the path for what's their current culture and talent development department, where she's the senior manager of that team. They have done some amazing things at UTA, Utah Transit Authority, to really help create a culture of caring about people. And so, Alicia, I'm going to kick it over to you. And if for those that have questions about anything, please feel free to chat those in the message. And then when Alicia's done, we'd be happy to talk about those. So, Alicia, I'll kick it over to you. And I think you're muted. You want to unmute yourself there. Oh, we can't hear your laugh, but we'll hear it at some point.
Well, it's bound to come out again, so stand by for that one. Okay, let me share my screen really quickly here. Okay. Sorry, now I'm nervous.
No, you don't have to be nervous at all. You're doing great. Okay, beautiful. You're up and running.
There we go. So thank you so much for the opportunity to participate. I've absolutely loved getting to know Jared and all of the culture work that he does and positive work and messages that he shares. So I have the privilege of working with the Utah Transit Authority. And if there is one thing that I believe UTA does extremely well is they care. They care about their community, they care about their employees, they care about their families. And so I've got a couple of tips today about some of the things that we've done intentionally and some of the things that have just happened as we've evolved over our culture journey, where there's something for everybody every day. And hopefully this will be helpful. So as Jared mentioned, I've had the opportunity to travel the world. I've also worked in 5 different industries, and I have found that there are commonalities worldwide in just people being people. And those would be that people want to make a difference. They want to be able to leave a mark or feel like the work that they do matters. They need to feel valued. It's important to know that the work that you do, you can take pride in it, and so do others. And so what does it look like to feel valued? Being part of something larger than self. One of our departments several years ago, they were trying to think of things that could really bring a dispersed workforce together, and they had this extra space in their area, and they created a community garden. And over the years it has grown. You see these beautiful pictures of their community garden, and they work it on the weekends. They've since installed their own drip line system to it, and these are folks in their own time outside of working hours putting together this community garden. And last year they created a pumpkin patch, and they had a harvesting time where all of the children of the families or the grandchildren of our employees came, and they picked their pumpkins for the year. So being part of something that's bigger than just you as an individual. And then recognition. Recognition for the things in your personal life, recognition for things in your professional life as well. So all of those are, it doesn't matter what industry you are, it doesn't matter your ethnicity or what your age is, those are commonalities that we all have, and they tie directly into creating that culture of caring. So why should we care about creating a culture of caring, right? I love this quote by Bach. Caring has the gift of making the ordinary special. And I truly believe that when you have the opportunity to care for someone, to create that service, make somebody feel valued, you can take an ordinary day for them and make it extraordinary. I love this picture because this is something that UTA does for me. It makes things special. These are 2 of my nephews that I love and adore. And every year, our front runner organization will open up their doors to all of UTA's family and friends. And you can take tours, you can see the engines, you can ride through a train wash. And it's their way of showing our families what we do every day and how we make a difference in the community. And I got to wear the world's coolest aunt title for the day when these little guys got to come and see these big trains, because they love trains. So it's not just inviting our own families, but our extended families. And so being able to create that culture where UTA is a family is something that's really important that we do. So jumping into the tips. Once you know why it's important, there's value in it. You need to know your people. Every team is different. Every organization is different. You may have folks that like one-on-one recognition. You may have folks that are very comfortable going to a senior center and for their entertainment dancing with senior citizens. Not all of us have good dance moves, right? So it's really important to know what drives your people. What are their intrinsic motivators? What gets them out of bed every day? And once you know that, you can really tap into the potential of all of your employees, of your family members, of your community members, because what drives us is what makes us who we are. Next one is that there has to be something for everyone. We're all not created equal. We have different interests. We have different personality styles. The picture on the left, I absolutely love. These are some of our employees that decided to participate in a mud volleyball tournament. Not something I would be participating in myself, but for those that are really active and they're okay to do something like that, you know, really athletic, that's wonderful. We have others and maybe they're going to do a gaming get together, or we have a lot of different activities where sometimes the activities are done internally, but to help with external support. We had a Pinewood Derby contest this year, and to enter your car into the Pinewood Derby, there was a charge for it, and all of the funds that were raised went to go towards a scholarship fund for women in transportation. Last year, it went to a different pet shelter. So what are the things that drive your employees? What's important to them? The picture on the right, I love. This is a leadership team meeting and a get to know you. They had some leadership changes, and so they went on a city tour on their scooters, and that's how they conducted their meeting and built relationships with one another. So it can be in small groups, it can be individual, but making sure that there's something for everyone. Internal versus external. I would say a lot of big name brand organizations, top 500 blue chip companies, they're really good at the external focus of showing caring. You have United Way, which UTA participates in as well, large service projects, and UTA exists to serve people. We exist to be part of the community, to make the community better. And so our employees have a very, very strong connection to community, and they really want to make that difference. We have different volunteer opportunities all year long. The picture on the right-hand side is we had the opportunity to volunteer as judges for the Special Olympics bocce competition this fall. We've helped support the Veterans Games. We've done so many different things, Habitat for Humanity, all of those. And it's something our employees choose to do. They ask to do it. They actually come up with what do they want to participate in this year. We have one of our teams, and they have dedicated days of caring every month, and their employees decide what they want to do and how they want to serve. Maybe they're going to hand out water bottles at a marathon. Maybe they're going to go provide babysitting or daycare, resume writing and professional development for women in battered shelters. Whatever it may be, there's a lot of external. And I think a lot of companies are good at that. But what we often miss is the internal. How do we recognize, how do we serve one another internally? On the picture on the left, what I love about this, it was created by one of our operators, our frontline employees. They wanted a way to recognize their peers that they see out on the streets doing great things, serving their customers well, going above and beyond, recognizing somebody in a different department. UTA has a dispersed workforce. Many of our employees aren't in the office every day. And so as leaders, we miss the opportunity to see their amazing work happening on a regular basis, but they see one another out there. So they created a WOW award. They created criteria to recognize their employees and say, wow, this person did a great job. They get recognition now, they get a certificate, and they have this WOW window that you can see. Another one of our groups has done something similar, and it's called the High Five Award. And they get a picture. And what's really cool is they often will send this certificate and a write-up to the family of the employee that received it to let them know how awesome their employee is and that we appreciate what they're doing every day. They give their best selves every day. So what are those internal recognitions? What are those internal service opportunities? We had one of our departments that didn't feel like they were very well connected to what our frontline employees did, and they wanted to better understand their work. Summertime, it gets really, really hot, and our operators and mechanics don't always have the opportunity to get out of the weather or have an ice cold drink. So this department hauled big coolers out in the system, and for a couple of days randomly throughout the system, they would just show up and they would pass out popsicles or ice cold waters to our operators and say, thank you for what you do. What can I do for you? And so just providing that service, letting people know that we recognize what they're doing, we appreciate them. Another thing is organic versus structured. There's this fine balance, and myself included, I want things to go well. I want things to work. I like the details. I like to have all the data. What's the full plan? And sometimes our most powerful moments have nothing to do with a formalized plan. So we do have different types of recognition and value that are very structured. You get an anniversary reward every 5 years. There's a gift card and there's a lovely OC Tanner pin that comes with that. There's a nice letter and a thank you. We have Employee of the Month at one of our light rail divisions. They're submitted by their peers and then they are selected to be an Employee of the Month. The picture on the left here is we have award criteria for something that we've started called IMUTA. And we nominate employees who provide extraordinary service to persons with disabilities. And they're nominated for the service that they do, and they're recognized by senior leaders and our board of trustees on a quarterly basis for the way that they serve and go above and beyond. So some of our recognition is structured. We also have this fabulous tool called Motivosity that we started about 1.5 years ago at UTA for our administrative employees. And the most powerful piece about that I love, I'm ridiculously addicted to it, is the peer-to-peer recognition. Being able to have a peer have an avenue to say thank you or recognize them for what they're doing, as well as their leaders. On the right-hand side, we have a committee called the SLBU Gives Back, Salt Lake Business Unit Gives Back. And they're doing a fundraiser that they just completed called Fill the Bus for the Utah Food Bank. And they filled an entire 40-foot bus with food to donate to the food bank. So they had over 2,300 pounds of food in that bus that they drove and unloaded. And that's something that they wanted to do. They have a committee that they've established to go and do different types of service projects, and that's one that they just wrapped up. But what I would say about the structured is you need enough of it so that you can ensure everybody is getting recognized and appreciated at a certain level. But the organic is often more powerful. Our best ideas for who to serve, how to demonstrate appreciation, what projects they want to work on, how they're going to improve their work, how they're going to improve the service that they provide to their customers, comes from all of our employees. Our frontline employees are the ones that say, I'd like to do this, or can I take on this piece of work, or could we create a team to help us support interview preparation, or whatever it may be. And it's the ideas of our employees. They are intrinsically motivated. They feel like they're making a difference, and they're empowered to make that difference. And the further we get on our culture journey, the more that leadership is letting go a bit on that control and the structure and the plan and the formal forms, and letting our employees find a way to make it happen. And there's nothing more rewarding. The momentum is incredible. And the last one I would say of the 5 is milestones. Employees are 2 times more likely to start looking for another job when they hit critical milestones. Birthdays, a life-changing event, maybe they get married, maybe they get divorced, they have their first baby. And so it's important to be aware of milestones that your employees have. The first time I came to UTA, I'd only been here for a couple of weeks, and I was working primarily in a maintenance area. And they said, we're having a baby shower for one of these supervisors. And I said, oh, okay. And I walk in this trailer, because that's where our office room was. And we have all of these male supervisors who have decorated baby stuff everywhere for one of our supervisors whose wife was about to have a baby. And they invite the spouse or the family in. And it's something where all of the employees go in on different gifts. They find out what they need. And we host baby showers. We just had 2 in our department last week. We have 2 babies due in our department in the month of December. We're going to have 1 baby girl and 1 baby boy. And it is so neat to see that we truly care about our employees, their family, the milestones that they have. If somebody gets promoted, we'll have a celebration for them. If somebody is going to retire, retirement parties are huge here. Our tenure is incredible. People stay for decades at UTA. And so that's a big bash when somebody retires after 35 years or 43 years or 25 years. And so all of those sorts of events, they're put on by the employees. UTA is taxpayer funded, so we can't provide gifts like that. We can't purchase cards and flowers. And so all of these sorts of things come from our employees. And I think that that says a lot. When somebody graduates from college, you know, we might decorate their desk or put an article on them that goes out to the organization congratulating them on their achievement. And when somebody gets married, it's so fun. I've got an employee who started as an intern, graduated with us, got a full-time position, got married, had their first baby, and you get to watch them change over their career. You get to watch them grow into their family life. And so those milestones are really neat. We also have the formal milestones. So big anniversary dates. On the right, we have one of our key performance indicator boards for our maintenance department. And they have goals that they set as a team and a department every month. And if they meet those goals, they get to have a team celebration and a team lunch. And it's a way to recognize them for their hard work, let them know how they're performing, that we recognize what it took to get there, and say thank you. So just to kind of wrap up there, the 5 tips that I've seen work extremely well for creating a culture of caring, and a lot of this existed at UTA and continues to grow. I can't take credit for the people at UTA. I think because we are a service industry and people believe in the work that we do, a culture of caring comes naturally here and then is heightened by the culture work and the leadership focus on people. But it's important to know your people. It's important to make sure that there's something for everyone. If you have an introvert that doesn't want to be recognized in front of a group of 40 people, don't do it. Pull them aside, give them a thank you card, pat them on the back. Make sure you know your people. Internal versus external, showing you're caring for the community, being part of that. My favorite part of being able to do external community work is I might be working alongside a director, a frontline employee, and it doesn't matter. You're building relationships, you're building camaraderie, and titles don't exist. So you can really create some authentic, deep, long-lasting relationships when you're doing service work, both internally and externally. Having a balance between organic and structured, play with it. Figure out what you're going to do, what works, what doesn't work, and let your people come up with what they want. And then milestones, both professional and personal milestones in your employees' lives are critical to creating that culture of caring. I know personally that my boss cares about me as a person. She cares about my personal career. She cares about my spouse, my family. She cares about my fur babies, since we don't have children. And that makes a difference for me. I am more motivated in the work that I do because I know I make a difference and I know that somebody cares about it. So with that, I would say if you have any questions, we'll just open it up.
Awesome. Alicia, thank you so much. Absolutely love that. I guess the first question I want to throw out there, and I guess before I do, just a reminder for all of our participants, if you just go to the chat window, then you can put your questions in there and we'll get to those. As you were talking, I mean, you have, how many employees are at UTA?
About 2,600.
So 2,600 people, and you talk about this organic growth of your culture. How have you been able to empower people to, 1, come up with ideas, 2, keep it organic, and 3, not have like a lot of HR bureaucracy just pull that down, right? Because like we want the empowerment, but we also like are controlling it. So how have you found that balance?
Oh, I think it's changed over time, to completely be honest with you, Jared. But I would say that first, believing in your people, right? The most powerful piece of anything is your people. And so non-utilized intellect is such a waste. I mean, that's one thing we talk about in continuous improvement, is to truly tap into the potential of your people. you have to embrace their ideas and their questions and their concerns and what it gets them excited. So I think a lot of it has been helping shift the focus with our leadership, talking to them about your job as a leader is to make sure that there's those clear expectations, but provide resources, remove roadblocks, let your people do the work. Your job is to work for your employee and find ways for them to be successful. And so as our leadership focus has shifted on what's the role of a leader, it's not managing that independent day-to-day, micromanagement of how to do their work. They know how to do their job. They're technical experts. And so they have the best ideas on how to make it better. I would say that when we first started transitioning, there was maybe a bit of a test time frame where we'd say, what do you want to do? Or what do you think we should do? And they're going, well, you're the boss. Tell me what to do. Mm-hmm. And there was this hesitancy. And so they kind of tested it out with some silly things like, well, we need a different coffee maker. We need this, right? And they were really simple things. And so we did it. We said, well, how should we implement that? Find some funds to do that. If we find some efficiencies over here, we could shift. And so we put that ownership back on them, but we were willing to do it. And so time and time again, we supported them. We followed them. Has everything worked? No, it won't. And you have to be okay with that, taking that as a learning. But each time they would come to us and come up with an idea when we supported them, they're just off to the races at that point. The biggest challenge is trying to keep up with the, I think, momentum of the workforce, which is really exciting. And creating that freedom. So we've got, different celebrations and anniversaries and different cultures in our business units across the Wasatch Front. And so saying, okay, we want a way to recognize, but what works for your folks? And so making sure that something's equitable, but there isn't a black and white that says if an employee submits an idea that makes a difference or they were recognized by one of their customers and got a commendation, they get a $10 gift card. And another business unit's going to give them a set of movie tickets. So letting them be flexible enough to find out what works for their employees. And I think that that's been really important, is that balance between making sure that nobody's being left out and letting it come from what will work for my team or for my staff. If I had a total team of introverts, which one of my groups is, the last thing I'm going to do for one of our team building events is have them do charades. Mm-hmm. It would just be horrible for them. So uncomfortable. Right. And so I think that's that know your people piece.
That's great. Great advice. Thank you. So we have a question from Amira, and here's her question, Alicia. I'll direct it at you, and then I'll take a stab after if you'd like. Sure. The question is, their organization has a pretty strong internal culture, but they're a tech company, and they're actually looking to initiate more work from home and remote employees, and they're struggling to keep the culture going as they shift to the remote workforce. What suggestions would you offer?
So I think that there's a couple of different things. There's a lot of fun activities that you can do virtually, different ways of staying connection. You can have those social feeds. And keep in mind, UTA is on the government side of things, and we're more behind in a couple of those areas. But we do have the ability for folks to work from home. So I think the opportunity to still create a team environment, whether that's a virtual space or not, those recognitions, pictures are huge. We have found we have a dispersed workforce, and with them being not there and UTA growing, we don't know all of our people. So we find ways on our SharePoint site or on our website or in our newsletters or in a welcome email that there's a picture of the employee so that we're still making that connection. I will say one of the social platforms that you can use around Twitter and providing updates, Slack, all of those things. Our IT department is starting to do more working from home, especially for our developers. It's more helpful for them to not be interrupted 10 times a day by people that want to pop by and visit them. But that was part of the culture. Anyone could always stop in and visit them. And so creating that opportunity for, we've asked them, maybe they block out 2 hours so they can be uninterrupted, but then they're available online for conversation or to hop into a phone conference or a web conference.
That's great. Amir, the advice that I think I would give you, Gallup did some research and found that there are 3 key drivers of workplace satisfaction. And the first one is frequent, regular appreciation, like we've talked a lot about today. Even if you work from home, you want the validation. I actually remember talking to your receptionist at UTA, and I said, "What's your favorite part about Motivosity?" And she said that she loved that while her manager would travel all the time, she didn't get a lot of FaceTime with her, that she loved the appreciation she received on their intranet through Motivosity. Yeah, it was nice to see that peer recognition, but she knew that eventually her manager would log on and see those appreciations, and that she got the validation from the person that she wanted. So as we frequently and regularly appreciate people, then it gives the validation that we're hungry for. The second pillar that Gallup found is a sense of community. It's connecting with those people that you work with. And so being able to find common interests and being able to do these organic and some of the time structured initiatives like you've talked about is such a good way to draw people in. And so once you know common interests, put those activities together, where it's self-driven or by the company is very helpful. And then the third one is the relationship with your manager. I mean, it's the number one side reason for turnover, as we've talked about. So the more often we can work with managers on becoming effective at communicating, at providing feedback, and really helping build somebody up in their job, in their career, and in their personal life, really creates that sense of connection to the community, and then you get the appreciation from the people that you want. So I've seen remote workforces have a lot of that insight through those 3 key pillars. And Motivosity is a great tool that helps with that as well. So we'd love to talk to you about what we do there. But I think that that's really how you can help with those remote workforces. So another question that I would love to toss out there, as we kind of talked a little about, is that relationship with your manager. You even talked a little bit about how you've created this family culture. And I'm wondering, how do you work with managers to ensure that they're having more effective dialogue with their employees that empower them to create these ideas and to want to bring their kids or nieces and nephews in? Like, what are you seeing managers do to be effective at improving those relationships?
I think our leaders that absolutely do it best, and there's a couple of them that come to mind, is they are truly curious about their employees. What drives them, what's important to them, what challenges are going on in their life. We have one of our maintenance managers up in our Ogden facility, and when he goes out on the shop floor, he will never ask them what they're working on, how they're doing their job. He will ask them, how was the kids' soccer game this weekend? How are those flute lessons going? What do you need from me? What's getting in your way? And so truly building that relationship from the ground up, you have to have that interest in your employees. If you know what drives them, you can accomplish anything together. And that's a shift. There's folks that would say that's the softy feely piece, but I think it gets back to what you talked about, Jared, and we need to bring in more of that love. And there's a way that there can be love without it being we're all going to sing Kumbaya together around a circle. Some of our best performing departments at UTA are our maintenance shops. And you would think that that's not where you would sing Kumbaya or show a lot of love, but they're very engaged and empowered by their leaders because they know that their leaders care about who they are and they want them to be successful. People want to do a good job at their work. They take pride in their work. And so finding ways for them to be successful is really important.
Yeah, love that. Well, thank you all for attending today. I really love the takeaways that you've given us today, Alicia. And I'm really blown away by Utah Transit Authority. I mean, as you mentioned, like most innovative, productive teams are these mechanics and your government agency, yet you have this amazing culture that people like are just hungry for. And you've created something so special there. So there's definitely some secret sauce to what you've put together, and love the progress that you've made there with talent development and with culture. So thank you so much for joining us. Thanks everybody for joining. And feel free to reach out to us if you have additional questions, and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.